I've left her, marooned for all eternity, in the center of a dead planet. Buried alive. Buried alive.
So you want to go to a real party?
Yo! Stop your grinning and drop your linen. Found him.
What do you think?
Very nice.
It's very cool, Bateman, but that's nothing. What do you think?
You ain't seen nothing yet. White.
Impressive. Very nice.
I believe you're enjoying all this. Indeed, Captain. I've never seen him look so happy.
Shut up!
Shh. Shh. Well, what do you know? I finally got the last word.
I'm gonna tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.
Hello and happy Friday. I think this is the 12th consecutive day of live streaming for Lou and Mike between the Unidentified Celebrity Review, the Singularity Lab, and the Big Phone Home 2. We've got one more amazing show coming up here at UCR before we all enjoy the weekend. Personally, I'm hoping for a UFO landing on the White House lawn, forcing this streak to extend with an impromptu live stream here. Make sure that you're subscribed and ring that bell on YouTube to catch that. Fortunately, it's probably not very likely. So I do have other plans lined up. I'm going to build an antimatter detector in my bedroom. That's not nearly as crazy as it sounds. Carl Anderson won the Nobel Prize in 1936 for detecting the positron with such a device. High energy particles like positrons, muons, and anti-muons aren't quite as exotic as you might think. You don't need a super collider to create them. They're constantly raining down on us. Some of them come from relatively close sources like the sun, while others come from the explosions of stars millions of light years away. And with a relatively simple experimental setup, you can detect these in your own home. It's called a cloud chamber. You set up an enclosure where isopropyl alcohol is cooled to an extremely low temperature with dry ice. This creates a cloud of the alcohol to form. The instructions from CERN say that every minute or so, you should see a curved line appear in this alcoholic mist. These are the paths of these highly energetic cosmic particles. By looking at the path they take, you can infer the type. And this is how Carl Anderson confirmed the existence of antimatter. Nothing other than a positron could take one of the curved paths that you'll see in this home-built cloud chamber. And I'll be making my own cloud chamber, partly because, just like UAPs, this sounds almost too cool to be believable, and I want to see these tracks myself. But also, I think cloud chambers could have enormous benefit in detecting anomalous behavior. Could the finicky behavior of the electronics reported at Skinwalker Ranch be due to an influx in cosmic rays? If so, what kind of particles might be shooting through a cloud chamber, and what might that tell us? I think these devices could be an invaluable part of any UAP investigation. Now, I'll know more after I create one myself. So subscribe to my channel, Rather Be Squidding. I'll be documenting my creation and exploring into these high energy particles and their relation to UAP there. But there is one thing I know now, and that's that there's two invaluable parts of any UAP discussion, about to be summoned in. Let's hear it for your hosts of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, Luis Jimenez and Michael Mataluni.
Going down, gents.
Yo, 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 yo.
Judging by the activity in the chat today, I believe some people are already experimenting with cloud chambers, rather.
Indeed,
Might be
they
a
are.
different kind if I know our crowd, but
Yep. We'll take any
Perhaps.
cloud chambers at this show. I'll be honest with you. Gentlemen, whew, I'm tired.
Are you beat, man? I'm
beat.
beat
12
too,
days.
bro.
I'm beat. 12 days, man. 12 days in a row. And then if you count, really, it's like, if I like to go 15 out of, 17 days is it rather? Is that the math? Is that how it works?
a hell of a lot, no matter
It's
how
a
you
lot,
add it.
no matter how you got it. So, yeah. I think after next week, we're going to take like a break and just chill out. Because I got to go play some golf, man. I'm going crazy. Anyway, hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back to another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFO. My name's Luis Jimenez. That is Rather Be Squidding, and my co-host Michael Mataluni. Welcome back. Before we get started, of course, I want to say thank you to the sponsor, BlueMarlinChronicles.com, purveyors of the world's finest fishing tackle since 1995. Want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all of the jams you hear on the show. Their SoundCloud link is in the description below. Or is it Bandcamp? I think it's Bandcamp. Sorry. Either way, there are links in the description below. Speaking of links, Michael and I, and Rather, all have link trees down below. You can find our Patreon. You can find the podcast that is available on iTunes and Spotify. Anything else I'm missing, gentlemen?
Patreon, but yeah, I mean, you know.
No, I hit the Patreon. We played the commercial.
Yeah.
They know. The people know. The people know.
Marty knows.
Marty knows. All right. Well, dude, guys, today we have a really cool show. Partly because I was exhausted and took me a while to get today's lineup ready. So I put a couple lines out in the water, and Mark Turner, thankfully, bit. I got him. I got Mark Turner for an hour. And I also got Carl Vibe, partly because I wanted to put these guys together next week, but, you know, we got them together today. And at the Big Phone Home, the two of them together, it was just a fascinating conversation. And I mean, even backstage when we were, they're like, oh yeah, we got a lot to talk about. I'm like, yeah, I know you do. And I can't wait to get into it. So let's do it, shall we?
Absolutely. So for those of you who don't know, Mark Turner is a veteran of the United States Navy, having served aboard the USS Elliot during the Persian Gulf War. As a cryptologic technician, Mark was granted a top secret security clearance and also performed duties as an intelligence photographer. After outstanding service, a 4.0 sailor that earned him commendations from flag officers. Mark left the Navy in 1992 to attend North Carolina State University, has lived in Raleigh ever since. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Turner.
Thank you. Great to be here. That's a fantastic introduction there too, Michael. Thank you.
Well, it's great to have you, brother, and we appreciate it. You deserve a fantastic introduction, as does this gentleman. Carl Vibe is a full-time content creator. He recently launched his new show, Carl Vibe, on YouTube to investigate the mystical aspects of reality and consciousness. Always a good conversation when this gentleman is here. Ladies and gentlemen, Carl Vibe.
Hi, everybody. Hopefully my connection holds up. I'm actually near Skinwalker Ranch and Blind Frog Ranch, right in the Uintah Basin up here at Phenomicon. And so hopefully I can stay connected here and don't lose the signal.
Yeah, where are you in a antique shop? What's going on?
I love that console TV.
I saw this corner, like staying in the basement at my cousin's mother-in-law's house. They're out of town and let me crash here. And I was like, sweet. And I found this corner full of all this cool stuff. So I actually just got this Bigfoot print from Jeff Meldrum at Phenomicon.
Please show us.
So this is a replica.
I love that Carl. Dude, he's so. First of all, dude, I don't want to call you a YouTuber. I'm just gonna call you professional. But the guy, like, he's on the road and he's like got a impromptu set behind him with a Bigfoot statue.
This was all.
I mean, this is
awesome. I mean, that's so Carl Vibe. Anybody else would have done it from their damn hotel room, some boring thing. Carl Vibe's like, no. Let me find a corner somewhere that's quiet, that's got a cool background, and show everybody this. Dude, I didn't even see the Bigfoot print back there. Show it to us. What is it?
I honestly didn't even touch anything else. All I did was I put this ghost hunting pod here because I thought that was cool. This creepy old this poltergeist TV's already here in the bedroom.
I love it.
This is a Bigfoot cast. This is Patterson Gimlin Patty Bigfoot replica. That was there. Jeff Meldrum's there and autographed it for me. And so anyway, I'm talking to all these guys and the Blind Frog Ranch people and the Skinwalker Ranch guys to get them on the show and on my show and everything coming up. So that'll be really cool.
Yeah, dude, that sounds awesome. So Mark, you were saying earlier backstage, right before we started the show, man, we got a lot to talk about. And I can't exactly remember where we left off the conversation with Carl Vibe and the Mark Turner panel. But where did you want to start today, man? Because you're a fascinating dude. And I feel like we need like 15 shows to really unravel this onion, because I just pulled a piece of your bio. Like the other things that you do in your life are also fascinating as well. So I'll kind of give you the floor and introduce everybody, to who doesn't know who Mark Turner is, because there were a couple of questions in the chat, like who's Mark Turner? So I don't want to give you this one label as this, military veteran, cryptologist, like who's Mark Turner?
Well, thank you for asking that. I did serve in the Navy, as you mentioned, went on to move here to Raleigh, had some experiences that have taken place here, had some experiences that took place actually when I was in the Navy. And
when you say experiences, do you mean UAP experiences?
Yes.
Specifically, or life experiences?
I do have a story about UAPs in the Navy, which I'm happy to share about. I did not actually witness one myself, but I showed up right after one was witnessed. So.
Okay.
First-hand story. If you want to hear about it, I'd be happy to go into it.
Absolutely. But I was just trying to clarify the experiences that you'd had between Raleigh and the Navy. So just curious. I was just like, okay, are we talking about, just on this show, we have to clarify exactly what experiences mean.
Sure. Absolutely. So I do have some psychic ability, which I've had off and on all my life, and precognitive dreams and things like that. And I listened to the Art Bell show back in the day and heard a bunch of claims about remote viewing. But then when I heard some of the military guys come on and actually talk about it and realize that the military was actually doing this, having been in the military and knowing just how conservative the thinking is in the military, you don't want to go too far out on a limb, career limiting moves and things like that. Right. I figured that there's got to be something to this. And so that's kind of what got me interested in that. And really, remote viewing is just a way to sort of channel your psychic ability so that you can direct it and basically keep that imagination part of your mind from getting in the way. So I've also seen UAPs here in Raleigh and had some other experiences as well. So I'm just happy that people are having these conversations now. I woke up this morning thinking it is really just amazing that that we're talking about stuff like this. And when I was a kid and I saw some interesting things like that, I never would have had anybody to talk to about it. So this is just we're living in amazing times. I want everybody to know that.
Oh man. Okay. Does anybody else have a question so far? Because I can definitely find more.
I love that you said that, because I've thought about this for a long time. I've always been frustrated with not being able to connect with people who want to expand and go into some of these other fun areas of conversation. So the fact that you're here to talk about it is appreciated. So let's dig in. What you want to share about your UFO experience?
Yeah. So the first, I was in the Navy. First, it was my very first deployment. I was on the Elliot. We had just left California. I believe we had stopped by Port Hueneme, somewhat in the area of Catalina Island, actually. And we were on our way to Hawaii one night. Being the Eastern Pacific, there's not a lot going on. We don't normally have, enemy planes flying over or anything like that. So it was a fairly quiet evening, and I had the mid-watch. So I took a break, walked down to the fantail, because if you've ever been at sea at night, the stars are just incredible, right? So you got like wall to wall stars. You can see galaxies and everything. It's just gorgeous. So I was out there, and my eyes were actually still adjusting to the dark when all of a sudden I realized that the aft watch is standing right next to me, just out of nowhere, right? So I'm like, oh, okay, what do you want? And he quietly sort of asked me, he's like, hey, you know anything about satellites? Because he knew I was in the operations department, and so I was like, well, this is interesting. I wonder where this is going. So I said, yeah, I know a little bit. What do you want to know? And he's like, well, do they move? And I thought, yeah, well, they move. But he's like, yeah, but do they change direction? And right then I'm going, this doesn't sound like the normal satellites that I'm used to. So I said, well, actually, no, they don't normally change direction. And we said, just now there was this light that came up from the horizon and flew right over us, hovered for a little bit, and then took off to the left. And I said, oh, okay, that's very interesting. I don't think that was a satellite. And so I said, okay. And he walked back off to continue doing this watch. And, right away I'm going like, that was no satellite that came by. And it was honestly right in that same area of off of Southern California there where all these sightings have been. So that was roughly, I think, fall of 1980, let's call it 89.
Do you know if they reported that, or do you think it was just that's something strange and have to tell your buddies, but don't report it up the chain kind of incident?
There was really no place to report it up until when the report came out in May, and the military kind of was forced to sort of pay attention to these things. We're trained to fight foreign adversaries. We're not trained to fight lights in the sky or things underwater that we can't identify. And so there's really no category to put this kind of stuff in. So I would be shocked if anybody had made any kind of log entry for this particular thing. And I know of another one, at least, that occurred that also did not make it to the logbooks. So I'm trying to find more details on that one. That one happened after I left the ship in 1995. So.
Wow. Well, I was gonna say, could we hear about that one?
It's I was told secondhand about it. The Elliot was serving in the Persian Gulf at the time. It was nighttime, as far as I understand. One of the watches, I forget which one it was, reported up to the bridge that they had just watched a light streak from one side of the horizon to the other, and then maybe back again. And there were multiple witnesses, from what I understand. The bridge, I think, actually, the officer of the deck and the navigator looked out and saw that as well. And everybody was freaking out about it. There was a lot of excitement. And finally, the OOD told everybody to knock it off, get back to work. And as far as I know, it was not logged. In fact, I was told it wasn't logged because, once again, we're trained to fight foreign adversaries, and nobody wants to kind of go out on a limb and say what everybody was pretty much thinking, that, yeah, this was no airplane. This was something else. So, so I don't have any further details about that one, but this happens all the time. I would be surprised if, not be surprised if this happens on a regular basis. And up until now, there was no real way to report it or log it, or if you did, people would think you were nuts. So I think that one thing that is going to happen is that you're going to see a lot more reports like that getting logged, because now people got a little less stigma, I guess, in reporting them.
Yeah, and it seems like they're putting together some standard operating procedures per the UAPTF report. Obviously, that wasn't in place before, but you did have the ability, or at least pilots, from what I understand, had the ability to contact Robert Bigelow there for a while. That was in the documentation when it comes to unidentified flying objects. Is that something that also, was that just for pilots, or is that something that you could have accessed then as well?
As far as I know, that was a pilot thing, and I don't know, what kind of procedures were in place back then. I hope that there is a similar kind of outlet now for sailors and surface combatants, even submarine people, to report that type of thing too, because it's not just in the air. There have been lots of contacts underwater too that are clearly not enemy submarines, and no supersonic whales or anything like that, and if there's no place to log that, then it doesn't get logged. So
supersonic whales is the next t-shirt idea.
That's a good band name, wasn't it?
Supersonic Whales is not bad. Here's a question from Zofa, and it sort of gets into, I know that the topic that Carl Vibe absolutely loves, and he says that, thank you, by the way, for the donation. I taught myself to remote view using the declassified files and Monroe Institute tapes. I remote viewed my friend editing music on his PC, so I believe. I guess, Carl, since you're on the screen, I mean, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think I kind of fell into researching remote viewing and reading a lot of books about it and finding it as being really valid if you get into the right group and study the right group of people that are doing it. Simply because I think you have a lot of these strange or phenomenal experiences or encounters, or you start to have paranormal things occur in your life, and you try to sort that out, and there's no way to really prove it. There's no way to go out there and validate. You know, how do you go check on these things? Or you can't access the secret files or secret locations or anything like that. So you're kind of left alone just to talk to other people. And eventually, you know, some people still searching after that, you realize that kind of piggybacking this phenomenon, the government realized the same problem. You can't just go out and research these things straight up all the time scientifically. And the Russians are actively using psychic research and remote viewing methods in their programs. And so the United States government started doing remote viewing. And so studying the UFO stuff and the paranormal, trying to understand that, I ended up in those files and reading about Ingo Swann and Uri Geller and a lot of these prominent people, you know, that Mark can probably speak to a lot more clearly on, but people that have just been validated over and over again, doing really amazing stuff. And then when they are targeted, unbeknownst to them, to look at the phenomenon and to look at UAPs or UFOs, the results are very strange and sometimes really confirming. So I've kind of wound up researching and studying remote viewing just because it seems to be a really valid way to research the topic that just gets overlooked a lot, that I'm open to.
Are you guys interested in, I mean, I guess this is the biggest challenge I have with remote viewing is I'm just curious, where are the double-blind studies? I mean, it seems like this is something that could be validated. It seems like this is something that could be scientifically validated. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it has been validated. If you look at the statistics that Dr. Jessica Utz has collected, she can show you that the trials that she studied, the sessions she studied, prove definitively, statistically, that this is not chance it's occurring, that there's some sort of effect. So that's been done again and again. And research continues with Dr. Ed May, who took over the program at the end of the remote viewing, the official government remote viewing program. He's continued to do research with viewers like Joe McMonagle and others, where they're in the lab and they're testing remote viewing processes and procedures and still trying to figure it out even today. So
is that like a university lab or like a private lab or what?
It's a private lab now. He was affiliated, I think, with SRI at one point, and now he's got his own lab. It's been doing that for a couple decades now.
Have they been, like peer reviewed and through the kind of academic process, these papers?
Yes, they have, actually. There's a number of them. I don't have them offhand, but I know one of the original peer reviewed papers appeared in the IEEE. It was written by Hal Putoff and Russell Targ. And there's a story about this that probably folks may or may not have heard, but this was in the early days of the SRI research. And they came up with this paper and submitted it to the editors at the IEEE, and they were like, this is about remote viewing. This is, crazy pseudoscience. We're not going to do it. And Hal, I believe, convinced him. He said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, we've got a presentation that we need to do over at Bell Labs that we're going to talk about this paper, and we're going to get their engineers into a room, and we're going to present it. And depending on their response to it, if they like the paper, would you go ahead and publish it? And the editor said, okay, sure, you're on. So they went out to Bell Labs. They talked about remote viewing. They talked about their paper. The engineers could not get enough of it. They loved it. And so that's how that paper wound up getting published in the IEEE. So it's very interesting. I think you can download it various places. It's called, it's got some crazy scientific name, which slips my mind, but it's Harold Putoff, of course, and Russell Targ in the IEEE. And I think that was published in the early 70s. So
is it Mind Reach?
It's talked about in Mind Reach. Yeah, if you've read Mind Reach, you can read about it. But it's actually a paper, academic paper,
right.
and of course there are others as well. And as I mentioned, Dr. Utz and Dr. Dean Radin have both published scientific reviews of remote viewing that prove it out.
So what if remote viewing was going to go mainstream, let's say, what would be the advantages of it? Like, how could we use this to better society? Or how could it be used to make society worse?
First off, when you are practicing remote viewing, when you're learning remote viewing, you are learning about your mind and how your mind works. And that is powerful in itself, right? Knowing, sort of getting to know the little clues. It's almost like trying to decipher your dream symbols in your dreams. If you happen to wake up and you write down your dreams, which actually is a very good practice, you start to figure out over time, what your mind is showing you with particular dream symbols. And sometimes you can even go into your dream and ask what a particular dream symbol means. Remote viewing is very similar, where you are trying to establish a communication between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind, because it has that information. We still don't know how it does, but it's learning how to decipher that information in a clear path, and then being able to write it down or convey it. That's really all it is. So it's a very personal endeavor, and call it like a mental martial art almost. You really have to be focused, and you have to be dedicated to practicing it, because that's the only way you can get good at it. But it's true that what Carl says, and what our commenter said earlier, you can honestly really learn this from all the available resources online for free if you want. And I know some excellent remote viewers who are completely self-taught.
Hey, how did you get started on this? Did these Navy experiences that you heard of kind of inspire you, or did what set you down this path?
Well, like I said, the fact that the military was studying this really got my attention. And then I happened to hear about this talk given by Joe McMoneagle that was nearby. And so knowing a little bit about him from his appearances on radio and some of the books that he'd written, I went to one of his workshops on the weekend. And he did a number of exercises with us and showed us, how the whole process works, basically talking about the protocol. Joe is not one to really get tied up in a lot of the framework of CRV, the control remote viewing or anything. He's like, remote viewing is basically when you and everyone else in the room is completely blind to the target, and you pull information out of your mind. So he doesn't really care what method you use. You could be channeling, it could be dowsing or tarot cards or something like that. But as long as everyone in the room is blind to the target and you're gathering information, that's what his definition of remote viewing is. So we did a couple of targets, where he had some pictures in envelopes, and I was just stunned when people all around me were getting these, and every now and then I would get one too. And just for a fact, it is one thing to not be sure about remote viewing, but it's another thing when you sit down and you try it, and you get information that you honestly could not have figured out any other way. That's when it really sells you. And then you start to realize, well, things don't quite work the way we think they do. So it is really.
So just in the last couple years, then you said since 2017.
Oh, this was probably back in 2006 that I first got started with it. And
cool.
It is. Once again, we're talking about stuff now that wasn't really talked much about in the past. So there's just the whole group of old school remote viewers that were in the Army unit and the CIA unit who are still doing some training, but now a lot of the training is taking place from the people that learned from them, and also the online resources that I talked about. And it's something that anybody can teach themselves. And one thing that I like to stress is that your tax dollars paid for this. It belongs to you, and anybody can do it. The resources are out there, and there's one thing to take somebody's word for something, but it's another thing to sit down and find out something for yourself. And when you've got this tool, there's basically nothing that you can't find out using it.
What are your thoughts on the use of remote viewing currently in the military? I mean, this was, from what I understood, these programs were long gone. Do you think this is still something that's being operated in black projects? I mean, what are your thoughts?
that would be a hard sell considering how disparaged I guess it got when it got released. I don't think the government wants to touch this program anymore. So I don't know of any ongoing effort to do anything about it, which is a shame because, for 20 straight years, the program proved its worth. But who knows? I don't have any knowledge of anything going on right now. I would hope that somebody would be doing something. I know that there are private remote viewers out there who will view things on a contract basis or something. And beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Speaking of the past research and some of the stuff that has on there, our buddy John Greenwald has done a great job here. Zofa calls him out. That Project Stargate on the Black Vault has all the files and analysis of the gateway process on CAA site. Is a must read. Third Eye Spies is the best doc on YouTube. Might have stumbled over that, but
yes, Third Eye Spies is a great documentary. So if you want to get a quick education about what's going on with remote viewing, that's a great one to watch.
What about how far off is Men Who Stare at Goats from the true story?
Oh,
yeah, this is a popular question.
It's Hollywood, right? They took so many limits. They wanted to make a comedy, and what's funny is I heard Lynn Buchanan talking on one of his chats recently about that movie. I think some of those characters were based on him. I think he likes to claim that George Clooney was his character, which may or may not be. But the thing about that is that he says that they of course exaggerated a lot of things and made a lot of things up, but there were so many honestly funny comedic sort of parts to the actual program that if they'd actually talked about some of those and shown some of those, it would have been just as funny. So yeah, it's Hollywood, it's not.
Yeah, I guess kind of the problem I have with all of this is it seems to me similar to the practice of cold reading that psychics do, right? And you'll see people do that, and they have amazing results. You see people that definitely impress people, but then you see these mentalists who do the exact same thing, and they have amazing results as well. But they're telling us that we're not actually psychically reading. We're just doing these kind of psychological tricks that are very, very impressive and maybe tapping into some intuition.
Yeah.
So yeah, how do you kind of delineate yourself, or would you disagree with kind of my synopsis of cold reading? Or
yeah, I mean, cold reading is not remote viewing because, as I said, you're aware of the data that you're getting. All right, you're reading the person that you're gathering that information from. So, I mean, you could do cold reading if the other person was in the other room and there was no contact and you had no way of telling whether or not whatever question that you were asking or whatever data that you were giving was right or wrong. So. It's not to say that you don't get psychic information from that, which could honestly be true, but it would break the remote viewing protocol of being blind in that case. So,
I guess my question is, how are you sure that
we
you're
can explain how that blind method works a little bit? Yeah.
Okay. Well, the way a typical remote viewing session worked, for an operational target in the Stargate program, for instance, the Army program, was that somebody else would be the tasker. Maybe it's a government agency or something that wants to find out about this mystery warehouse on the Soviet peninsula that nobody knows about. So that person would hand that over to one of the monitors in the group. They would give them an envelope basically with the tasking. Tell us about this. That's basically, there'd be a sentence in this envelope. Tell us about this unidentified warehouse, or they might have a picture of it or something. That would go in a thick, opaque envelope and probably in another one as well. So it's a double wrapped envelope. They would take that back to the remote viewer. Everybody in the room would have no idea what was in the envelope. And so they would start the session. They would task the viewer, tell us what important information is in this envelope. And then the remote viewer would just basically quiet their minds and write down whatever impressions come to mind. That's essentially it. There's not a whole lot to it. So once that gets done, then later on, it's important to get some feedback. So at some point in the future, if you can provide a picture of the submarine that they found in the big warehouse, for instance, that helps sort of close the loop. It seems to help give the remote viewer a little bit of confidence in it. But often whenever they would work those operational targets like that, where they were dealing with spy type stuff, they never did get that follow-up feedback photo because, it would have been too classified for them or something. So, that kind of help answer the question?
Yeah, so this gets really interesting, you guys, because like, let's say, for example, there's like a missing persons case, and nobody knows where the person went, not even the police, not the family, nobody knows. And so at a desperate time, the family and investigators will actually hire a team of professional remote viewers to take a stab at it. And sometimes they'll come back with actual location or descriptive details and actually go to this particular spot. Sometimes, like Joe McMoneagle tells stories where he was hired to find missing persons and they weren't even in the country where they went missing, and they end up just finding ashes buried in the woods where someone had been murdered and burned and buried. And they actually find the ashes just based solely off of the remote viewing psychic data that comes in blind. And keep this in mind, when they go in to do this, they don't even know that it's a missing persons case. For all they know, they're remote viewing the Bitcoin prices for tomorrow, or secret bases on the moon, or whether or not the water quality in Flint, Michigan is going to get better or worse. They have no idea sometimes going to it, even the category of the remote viewing topic, and then they end up getting coordinates for a dead body, and it ends up being a missing persons case. And everybody in the remote viewing team who haven't been talking to each other all get similar or correlative information that leads to finding the body. And this happens for kidnapped people, people that are in counterterrorism incidences, missing explosives and nuclear weapons that they have to recover down to aircraft. And so this has been going on for a long time, and in private organizations now, it's still going on, where these teams of remote viewers are getting hired to do these jobs. So it's interesting is when they get surprised and tasked to like look at Mars or to look at the moon or look at these UFO cases, the results that come back are really fascinating and confirming sometimes, because you get multiple remote viewers all looking at the same target and getting these really strange answers come back, kind of giving you a clear picture about it. So it gets really interesting.
If that was true, though, there should be no unsolved mysteries in the world, right? Like, we should be able to know where all the missing people are, and we should be able to find the missing planes. Should be able to find MH, 370 long ago.
Yeah, they can tell right now that Michael Mataluni's not even wearing pants underneath the table. He's wearing shorts.
Right? No, but that is a good point that Rather brings up. I mean, like, then why not?
Why haven't you remote viewed the Powerball numbers, right? Like.
That would be something I'd love to remote view.
There are people who do that on a regular basis.
And are they winning? I never hear about those people.
There's a guy on YouTube I found who does this. He does like the pick 3, and somebody sent a link to one of his readings, and it was the day before the draw that he was going to do. And I looked up the numbers that he had picked the day after, and he nailed every single one of them. So.
Yeah, I have a.
What's that YouTube channel again? Yeah,
yeah, I'd like to check that out.
No, so I mean that happens, and one thing that Joe showed us during his workshop that really blew my mind is we had he set us all down. There's probably like 30 of us in this classroom, and he had 6 envelopes sitting on the table in front of him, double wrapped envelopes, and he said, "Okay, I want you to work this next target." So he gave us the tasking number, and we're all just scribbling or writing down our impressions and stuff. And then he said, okay, I want you to come up here, and invited one of the students up to the front of the room. He gave them a die, right? And he said, roll this dice. And he did. And each of those envelopes had a number on there, 1 through 6. And he picked up the envelope that had gotten rolled by the die and opened it up. And that was the target that everybody had drawn. So we actually worked that target before it was selected.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff does sound amazing, but it also sounds a lot like, kind of the tricks that magicians do, right? That
here's
another one. Scenario,
and when you do it for yourself and you realize that there's just no explaining how this information came out, and it happened before we even selected the target, that is just mind-blowing. And that's how it works. And as Carl was mentioning about like finding out things in the future or picking lottery numbers or something, that's called associative remote viewing. And that is where you have usually like an either or situation, and you're kind of looking into the future when you do tasking like that. So I worked one of these where we were picking the was it the number of runs in a baseball game? I forget the name of that, but this was at the this APP Fest that happens in Las Vegas every now and then. So we were given this baseball game as a target, and you pick like one picture or object for one outcome, and you have another one for the other outcome. And the tasking you give to the remote viewer is, okay, tell me which of these objects you're going to see at the conclusion of the event. Okay, so let's just say it was the Braves versus the Dodgers, right? You've got like an apple for the Braves, you've got a pencil for the Dodgers. Those are your pictures. And you say, tell me which one you're going to see at the end of the game. So you set the remote viewers down, they pull up their impressions, maybe they draw something circular, or they've got like a pointy line or something or whatever. And then you have somebody acting as a judge that looks at both of these pictures and says, there's some strong indications that this is going to be the apple. So then you just let everybody know, hey, you might want to go bet on the Braves, for instance. And then everybody goes across to the sports betting table. They put down their wagers, watch the game. And then what happens? More often than not, the remote viewing will be correct. So then you come back and you have to provide the feedback to the viewers. You say, okay, so since the Braves won, here is the object that you're supposed to see. And then you show them only the apple. You only show them the winning outcome so that they get a clear view in their head. And that's how associative remote viewing works. And you can apply it to just about anything. It is really cool.
What sort of mental preparation goes into this? Like how, if you were to, let's say you wanted to remote view something, like what is your process to prepare for it? Is this something you could do on a dime? Is this something that requires extreme mental energy? Like what is the process?
I've found that when you actually are learning remote viewing and you are doing this like in a classroom for 8 hours, it can be exhausting because you are, you're kind of like using mental muscles that you haven't touched in eons. Like, we don't really do a lot with this kind of skill. So it can take some energy when you're first learning it. But the thing that you just need to be able to do is to quickly clear your mind and try to identify what might be imagination that is sneaking in. And that is very challenging to do. So that's why protocols like the controlled remote viewing have been invented by Ingo Swann, which kind of gives your left brain a little bit of things to do while the information is coming in through your right brain. And that way you can kind of avoid getting some of that imagination popping in. So you're supposed to be able to do it anywhere. And basically when you practice at it enough, that's the case. You can do it anywhere. Joe McMoneagle, first, he used to do cool downs. And then he realized, well, if I need to be in the battlefield to come up with some of this information, I don't have time to do a cool down. So at a drop of a hat, he can do a session, and it's amazing to see. But you gotta really practice to get to that level. So
which level are you?
Yeah, that was.
I've got like dozens of targets under my belt now, so I'm not exactly an expert, but I've been trained through Paul Smith's course for CRV, and I actually do monthly practice sessions with the Rhine Research Center. So. We get together once a month. I think it's the third Wednesday, 7:00 Eastern, on a Zoom call. I will hand out 2 targets normally to a group of viewers, just people who are out doing it for fun, and then give them half an hour to work it. And then we come back together and we talk about it. I give them the feedback, and I've really seen some amazing results to it. So you don't have to have formal training. You can just use your regular psychic skills and have some fun with it. So
I have a question. Is there a way we can test this, like through this show? Not today. I mean, but how could we as a show create some targets, or how would we do this? Like, how would we be able to show but not only ourselves, but maybe our audience said, hey, there might be something to this.
Well, the challenge is nobody's going to believe us. Even if he does it right.
Well, sure, but
they're going to be like, Mataluni set it up.
Let's let our audience work it.
Yeah, let's let the audience do what now?
They can work the target. I can give them a target tasking number. They can get back to us with their impressions. Probably wouldn't be good to share it on Twitter because everybody else is going to see it, but maybe they can send it to you, Lou, or Michael, or somebody. And I can give you the feedback later, and you can present it to people. So I mean, there's nothing like doing it for yourself to really convince you. You know, I'm not tricking you. It's all on you. So
the gauntlet has been thrown down.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so $20 from Jazz Shaw, and he writes, for Mark Turner, I just DM'd the picture of a cover of a book I'm currently reading. Please tell us the title.
Yeah, that's not how it happens. So I will give out the tasking for you, and let's see what you can do. Because, like I said, there's no substitute for doing it yourself. So if you are ready, everybody can work this. Yeah,
well, I think people are more interested in seeing you do it.
Okay, yeah, I'm not prepared to do remote viewing. Like I said, I'm no
here,
expert.
I can speak up here for this. If you guys are interested,
Carl, can you do it?
I'm a level 0.5. I do it on accident and for fun sometimes, but I haven't done it with a group or anything. But I've gotten a lot right on accident actually. But I'm learning remote viewing and just getting started at it. But I will say that there are YouTubers and friends of mine that do it, and you can ask them and find out for yourself. If you want to even hire remote viewers, but you don't have to tell them what the target is. You can come up with the 8-digit code of numbers and think of exactly what it is and follow the protocol and hire remote viewers to find out for yourself. Because this is going on. It's an actual thing. Something that blew my mind to find out was this. They're actually will take, like a corporation will take an invention that they're working on, and their engineers will run into a roadblock where they can't solve a particular problem with this device that they're building, and they'll hire remote viewers to look into the near future, actually, to say, we want you to see what this device is like when it's operating and actually working and functioning on the date that we figure it out. And the remote viewers are able to describe how the thing is functioning in the future at the future time. And then the engineers look at that data, take it to the lab, and it actually works. And they're able to finish the invention and get over the hurdles based on what hasn't even happened yet. So there's all these ethical conversations even going on right now amongst remote viewers about, are we manipulating timelines when we go in, look at things in the past and we bring this information, or we look into the future and bring it into our timeline? Are we actually creating ripples in reality? And there's all these ethical debates going on even right now among remote viewers. It's very interesting.
What are so the ethical debates are whether or not the remote viewing process is actually having implications in reality?
Yeah, so,
like, I guess my question would be, how is it? Why would that be any different than consciousness in general?
Well, exactly. Let's say you spy technically on the future when something isn't invented yet, and
got it.
You steal a corporate secret from another company before they've even invented or finished the product. You see how it works when it's done, because you've hired psychic spies to spy on your competitors. They can steal the invention, build it before their competitors, and get all the credit for it. And some of that is actually going on.
But here's the thing, though, Carl, is like, look, I know, Rather, you got something to say here, because Rather is like Mick West in this whole thing. Why are they not stealing competitor secrets all the time? And the issue is here, look, I know that there have been medals given to people in times of war for finding things out through remote viewing. So I'm not doubting it. It's just, this is hard to swallow that they're being hired to what company? Where was this written? You know, like I've never heard of these things. So that's why I'm like, whoa. Okay, let's pump the brakes on this a second. How do we simplify this? How do we, do me, Michael, and Rather privately talk about, okay, let's come up with a set of numbers for these guys to concentrate on and remote view, and then on a show we will reveal the numbers live, okay, and then we'll reveal what you guys got.
I actually just remote viewed Grant Levac creating a deep fake about this very conversation.
Yeah, well, Grant Levac is making deep fakes every 12 seconds. So honestly, I don't feel like that's a remote view, because he's eventually going to cover every aspect of life through these deep fakes.
So yeah, Lou,
go for it, Rather. Wait, hold on.
Yeah,
What I was going to ask is, say the target's like an apple, right? Like, how close do you have to get to make a match, right? Can you just draw a circle and say, hey, that's a match? That's kind of where I fall into this. I feel like there might be a lot of, makes stretched connections, right? You can draw down a bunch of stuff and you can make that match almost anything.
That's a very good question. So when we're using associative remote viewing for doing wagers and stuff like that, the role of the judge is very important for that reason, because you might get data that strongly suggests an apple. You might have somebody taste an apple, or sees leaves at the top or something, or you get the right shape. Actually, sketching can turn up a lot of information, or the remote viewers might just get like a image of a barn or something, for instance, and you might be way off. So it depends on the judge's ability to kind of look at what kind of data they're presented with to say, well, kind of looks like an apple, but it also looks a little bit like the other side. So rather than say it's going to be this team or that team, we're going to recommend that you pass, right? And in my book, if you're not losing your money, that's a win. So sometimes you don't get really clear information, but when you're doing ARV, you don't have to be like a wizard remote viewer to get enough information that suggests one or the other. So I kind of like that, and I think it's good for beginners. Although Paul Smith would disagree with me. He thinks that if you do too much of the ARV type of stuff, you wind up getting sloppy. But I think that it's easily done by a beginner. So if you want to have somebody that just pick like a yes or no question and have you answer that, and then choose a couple of objects that would represent that, and run you through a little example like that at home, you could certainly do it, and I bet you would be very successful at it. So
you could even Lou, you could even pick like a childhood memory, like your really memorable Christmas morning when you were 10 years old or something like that, that's very vivid in your mind, like that actually happened, that you could recall. And you might be really surprised, if you had a top-notch team, how much they might even describe presents that you got on Christmas morning, what you ate for Christmas dinner, and all kinds of interesting things. Yeah.
What sort of processes do you guys think? Look, there's plenty of science out there that's considered pseudoscience that may eventually pan out. It's probably a small, a small amount when you shake the pan. But what processes do you guys think are going on when it comes to this stuff? Obviously, we have, what I know about quantum reality is this much. Obviously, there are things that are possible that we don't even know are possible yet, right? So even if we can't track this down, but I'm curious what you guys think are the processes involved in this. Is this purely a psychic ability? Is this, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Carl, would you like to go first, or shall I?
I'll take a stab at it. I mean, a lot of it for me comes from just studying a lot of the different theories, like Donald Hoffman, and just different theories about the nature of reality. But I'm kind of the understanding that it has to do with consciousness actually not being just constrained inside the mechanisms of the brain and the body, but it's actually like a field of awareness that might actually be connected to everything that you perceive. For example, even with your visual spectrum, if you look out and see a mountain, technically seeing the mountain in the distance is happening as a unified experience between the sun, the light on the mountain, and the cognitive functioning in the brain. There's this whole unified oneness of happening that's occurring that we call seeing a mountain. And so I think consciousness is really a field outside of the body and awareness, and we just get kind of dumbed down with our vision, our hearing, and our regular five senses. But there's layers to this onion of conscious reality that extends beyond that. And I think kind of if you imagine your body like more of an antenna, you can open up the frequency instead of just on your regular cognitive signal of your thinking and your own thoughts day to day. You can open up that frequency and go to the source signal and sort of travel through that source signal or follow a target to a specific location. And that information in the universe is kind of an eternal field of information where everything that has ever happened is sort of recorded in that conscious space-time, and you can view it or see it from from where you sit with your own antenna. So
you
interesting
basically, basically your thoughts are as a non-local reality, unified field theory. We're all connected. It's interesting because, you know, when I have eyeballs, right? So my brain antenna has eyeballs that it can use to interpret information, and everything is information. There's nothing in reality that's not pure information, and we're decoding it. Our brains are literally decoding it. So what you're saying is, in this sort of non-local temporal reality, in this unified field, that there's a connection to everything, and in that, in connecting with that, there's a way to deduce sort of, you know, what you're trying to connect with. And I think it's interesting because, you know, that connection doesn't have eyeballs, so it would need to kind of formulate or interpret information in a very different way than your senses would.
Correct. Just like if you you're good. If you have all of the radio signals technically are all playing in the room around us right now, and all the 5G signals, the internet, the satellite signals, and you insert an antenna or a lens or a receiver into those signals, and you tune it into one station, and that's what you pick up. But if you smash the radio, you don't assume that the announcer's gone. You know that the signal and that information is still there in an energetic field that's just not being attuned to, if that makes sense. And so as a remote viewer, they master the art of kind of transcending the five senses of physical limitation, and they learn to quantum entangle with specific targets and look at those targets outside of just the limitations of the physical body, almost like the signal of the radio being sent and the receiver on the antenna are somehow sort of entangled from the sending and the receiving happening all at once.
I want to address Jazz's question real quick about, you know, bringing somebody on. If we know anybody we can bring on who can actually demonstrate this for us. But that being said, you know, we had this conversation when we were talking to Tyler, I think on Wednesday. Even if we, you know, went out and did this experiment ourselves, it's still it's still a personal anecdotal experience. And until we are able to reproduce this with in a lab with proper data, it's very difficult to convince people. Like we could bring on the best remote viewer right now that you guys know of, and if he was successful, only the people who already believe it would believe it, and the people who don't believe it wouldn't believe it. So what's the point?
Well, you would want to bring on a team. So you would want to bring on like not just Daz, but also Daz and Mark and like 4 other guys, and keep them all separate and just give them the numbers. And when all that information comes back and paints one unified picture, then you have a pretty clear answer. And that's kind of what they do. So you want even just one guy, you'd want like 5.
Right.
So yeah,
and we
Mark,
want double-blind studies. Right.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
I want to quick give a shout out to Matthew Wright. He's a killer on Discord with research and stuff. He pointed out the Russell Targ and Harold Putoff article. It's a perpetual channel for information transfer over kilometer distances, historical perspective, and research. If any of you were curious about that earlier. But Matthew's asking if you can cite the source of the finding ashes of a dead person. Do you happen to have any more information that we could dig into?
I can't remember if that was Joe McMonagle or Daz Smith that did that.
That's probably
Mark,
Joe. Probably Joe.
Yeah,
Joe did a series of live appearances on Japanese television. And this was probably back in the 90s, I think, once the news broke. But they tasked him with finding a bunch of these missing people. And he would, as Carl mentioned, sometimes he would find them in different countries like Korea, or some of these people, quite frankly, I don't think didn't want to be found. So in some of those cases, Joe had to apply some of his ethical boundaries again to kind of basically keep that from happening. He feels very strongly that he shouldn't be exposing people like that on television. But he did wind up finding a number of these individuals, I think at least half of them, that he was tasked with. And in the process of doing that, he drew some incredibly detailed maps. As far as remote viewers go, I don't know anybody who is quite as detailed at drawing maps as Joe McMonagle is. Sometimes actually there's a weird thing that happens when you do drawing in remote viewing. Sometimes it is completely flipped, like the left goes to the right, so it's backwards.
It all mirrors on you, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it
everything
does.
everything I've ever experienced is always mirrored like that, and that's why I don't trust it for myself.
Yeah, but he was able to draw maps and have teams of the Japanese television station go to these places and find these people. Sometimes their closest relatives really had no idea where they were. So that's to answer Matthew Riot's question. That's probably where that came from. And I believe at least one of those shows is available on YouTube. So if you search for Joseph McMoneagle and Japan, for instance, I think you might be able to find it. But that's fascinating. And any remote viewer who is willing to go on stage live in front of millions of people and do remote viewing is a lot braver than I am. So this also brings up another point, by the way. You should not just take tasking as a remote viewer from anybody. So you shouldn't take it from anybody you don't know, because it's not just viewing that you're doing when you're working a target. You're getting all kinds of senses, not just vision, but smell and hearing and feeling and emotions. And sometimes targets, if it's
Mark breaking up for anyone else or just me?
No, just you, rather. At least I hear him.
Yeah. So what happens is that you kind of make some sort of contact with the target that you're viewing, and if it's a disturbing contact, perhaps it's a murder or something like that, it can really floor you. So you can't really just trust anybody you don't know giving you a tasking, because it wind up being more than you hope for. So you got to be careful with it.
Interesting. Damn, I didn't think we were going to get into a remote viewing conversation today, boys. Not this deep. I mean, right. I mean, Michael, I tell this story all the time, but it is a fun story to tell. And it's this idea of one of our friends who's really into the topic and is a producer. And he was telling about this story about being at a barbecue and telling everybody at the barbecue about, aliens, 12 different races. They're coming from Zeta Reticuli. We know what they are. And everybody's like, wow, really? That sounds awesome. I can believe that. I can see that happening. And then you tell them about remote viewing and how we're astral projecting and trying to figure out, where dead bodies are and things like that. Everybody's like, get the hell out of here. Like, we're not we're not going to buy that. We're not swallowing that pill. I mean, it's just so weird. Guys, just don't be shocked.
Part of it.
Well, I was going to say, don't be shocked if at the end of all of this, if we even get to find out that all of this is a lot weirder and a lot more unexplainable than it seems on its surface. But yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Well, no, I was just going to say, it's very difficult to, I completely, I had an important.
You had a good one.
I did.
You had a good one. Sorry. Sorry. Well, let's go to this $10 donation from Zofa again. He said the CIA had two theories. Either everything is a hologram, everything contains the information for everything, or there is a conscious dimension outside space-time called the absolute on CIA.gov. LOL. I love that he just threw that off of CIA.gov and laughed after it. That was all right, cool. But yeah, I mean, what do you think of that? Or did you figure out your thought, Michael?
Did not figure out my thought.
That's okay. It's been a long
week.
What do you got?
12 days.
So remote viewing has been used to check out UFO information. And Joe McMoneagle was tasked on a number of high-profile cases over the years. He did one. Do you remember the Japanese Airlines flight over Alaska? Yeah, back in 1987. So this jumbo jet, cargo jet, was followed for several miles by this huge UFO, and it was tracked on FAA radar and everything. Joe worked that target, for instance, and came up with the type of UFO that was behind it. He drew a picture of it, said that it was like a drone type of object that was. It was basically confused by the airliner getting in the way of some kind of drone pickup or something. So that was very interesting. He also remote viewed the Travis Walton case and confirmed that something actually happened there, that he was knocked unconscious by this power of the drone that sort of came up and caused him to fall backwards and hit his head. So he actually got a concussion, according to McMoneagle. Travis Walton wandered off into the woods with a concussion, as you sometimes do when you get hit in the head. And that's why none of his buddies could find him when they returned. That he was just walking away in a stupor. So that was interesting. And some of the other events that I thought were like legitimate UFO cases turned out just to be something with a mundane explanation. So the remote viewers that work UFO targets, they don't tend to really put a lot of faith in them because, as I mentioned, you really need to get some kind of feedback, some kind of confirmation that what you're viewing is real. And it's hard to do that when you're talking about UFOs and aliens. Until we get something, that we can hold in our hands, it's really just interesting session, but not anything that really is definitive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I've used you for the whole hour. If there's any way, quickly, because I know Michael's got to go too. He's selling his house and he's got things going on. So it's just going to be me and Rather here for the second hour by ourselves. Can anybody answer this question really, really quickly? To what extent are the best RVers innately talented versus good at developing their typical abilities?
Okay.
Hey, quickly, guys. Thank you so much for the conversation. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to catching up soon. Thank you so much, guys.
Later, Michael.
All right.
Thanks, Mike. So in all the testing that they did at SRI and at Ed Bay's lab, they've never found anybody that necessarily couldn't do it. Everybody has some certain level of talent. The training and the practice and the dedication to practice is the thing that makes the difference. So, everybody could be Tiger Woods. Everybody knows how to swing a golf club. And, if you do it a million times, you might be able to get a swing that matches Tiger Woods. But do you have the dedication to sit there and practice? That's kind of the what you're looking at. So if you're willing to devote the time to do it, then you can make yourself outstanding. But anybody can basically learn it, and that's the cool thing about it. And like I said, you can do it for free.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that answer. Mark, please tell the folks where they can find Mark Turner, where they can find your blog, and what's going on in your life. And I can't wait to have you back and talk about UFOs next time, because we barely scratched the surface on UFOs. But go for it.
Lots of other stories there too. Follow me on Twitter at Mark Turner ETC. If you want to learn about the Rhine, where you can practice remote viewing every month with us, that's at rhine.org, RHINE.org. And I might have other links available at some point, and I'll share those on Twitter, and you can follow me there too. So,
all right. Well, sir, thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, ciao. Carl Vibe, I know also you're going to go see the dragon right now.
Yeah, I'm jealous of Carl.
Oh, you're muted, buddy. Oh, we lost Carl Vibe. All right,
we're Vernal near the Skinwalker Ranch, so who knows what was going on over there.
By the way, guys, we got both of their links in the description below, so you can both check them out. Rather, let's yeah, I know you got a lot to say. We're gonna get into it. Let's see if Carl pops back in. Okay, yeah, there's Carl. So let's pop him in real quick. Carl, sorry, we lost you there.
Sorry about that. Yeah, this connection there.
It's okay. So please, the floor is yours. What would you like to tell folks?
Yeah, just if you want to follow me, just check out on Carl Vibe on Instagram or on YouTube. I'm doing a lot more cool, like in the field stuff on my main channel on Carl the Crusher as well. Having fun there. But honestly, I think that people should take a look into this stuff. If at the level of just learning meditation and mindfulness, it's going to help your life. Or if you're into the mysteries and you want to know answers, getting into remote viewing, even if you come up short and you don't get good at remote viewing or end up making it a part of your life or getting into it, just the work in and of itself helps you become so self-aware and mindful throughout your life and problem solving that I highly recommend it. I think it's a really good thing to learn and get involved in. And plus, it's really cool to find out some of these mysteries and stuff. Once you realize and accept that remote viewing has a level of validity to it, and you find the right group of people that are doing it, you can kind of get some interesting answers to some of these questions that you may not otherwise get answers to at all.
Well, Carl Vibe, it's why we love you, man. You like to think outside the box. So we'll talk to you soon, dude. Have fun at Skinwalker Ranch tonight.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Peace.
See you, Carl.
All right. Let's get into it right after these messages.
I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom, you're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.
All right, rather. What do you got to say, man? What do you got to say?
Yeah, I agree with Carl at the end there. Like I think that there is value for, doing meditation and, having mindfulness and opening up your mind. And I think it's, quite possible that you tap into some intuition and maybe find things out that wouldn't be apparent to you in your normal day-to-day life. That being said, I am skeptical of a lot of the, actual
accuracy of
that
it
are made. Yeah, have you ever seen Darren Brown? Are you familiar with him?
I am familiar with Darren Brown. Yes, is he the guy? He's a
mentalist from England, right? And
yes,
he has these.
Did he put a whole bunch of people in a room where they were playing a zombie shoot 'em up game, and then then he put them to sleep, and then he woke them up in an actual zombie, and they all freaked out?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, he does lots of stuff like that where he just kind of messes with people's minds, and to some, he does like really crazy stuff like that. Right. Others, he'll have specials, and he'll he'll take someone up and he'll have them draw a picture or have them choose something, and then he'll do the reveal saying that he predicted that. Yeah. And then what he does is, and I take this all with a grain of salt because it's all production. You don't know what's true and what's not true. But his claim is that he's not doing a magic trick. He's doing neuro-linguistic programming of the people who are coming up. And he's, been doing subconscious suggestions to these people in order to kind of make them in that moment decide and choose what he wants them to choose. Right. So, to the subject, it looks absolutely phenomenal. But, it's an entirely engineered kind of thing. And it seems to me like could be that going on, especially when you have these scientific studies and Uri Geller and stuff like that. Some of the main people that it seems like that could be going on. Although it is a fascinating thing, right?
Yeah. Well, I feel like you're holding back a little bit.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't want to call people liars, right? Like, and I don't think that Mark was a liar. I don't think he was ever, manipulating someone or doing anything like that.
Right. But you could fall for
totally
a trick
in his belief. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I can kind of agree with that, but how do you explain the military putting actual tax dollars to this and actually looking into it? And maybe the only reason it did end is because of bad publicity. Like, it was embarrassing for the military to be revealed to be looking into this woo-woo stuff. But if they had continued down this road, I'm curious to know. I mean, if you're trying to achieve world peace, right? Like, let's just say, logistically speaking, you're trying to achieve world peace. I think there would have to be a huge paradigm shift in the way of thinking when it comes to the military. Like, they would have to start thinking, our generals, our Marines, like this idea, this idea of this spiritual army was hilarious in that movie. But it's true. Like, you would have to have a different mindset. And concept of what military could be used for.
Yeah. I know. Like, I had a thought the other day. Like, these skiffs where they go and view the secret documented materials. Like, it'd be interesting to know if they've done any special Faraday cages or anything to block out the remote viewers, right? Because if this is true,
well, I would. Here would be my concern, right? And I think if there was a lot of legitimacy to it, or I wonder what the percentages were. Like, how many times they put a remote viewer out there, and how many times they were successful versus not being successful, and how close were they, and what were these interpreted? Because a lot of this is also interpretation. Like, who's interpreting the data? Who's actually going, okay, we got a match, because that's important too in this equation. But it would concern me from a national security perspective. If we started this program, then that means that our adversaries know about this program. And, is it possible that they could be using this kind of technique to find out some important secrets?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like Stranger Things, right? Like, if you really go into the ultimate conclusion is that, there's. bizarre forces at play.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed.
But, you know, I think that there is some validity to, you know, when they're talking about you know, like high-tech workers and, you know, getting results from remote viewing sessions. I feel like there's a very good possibility that you're tapping into some intuition, or, you know, getting yourself into a mind frame where you can open up your mind and you can look at a weird sketch and say, oh, hey, you know, that actually connects a lot of things in my mind. So, you know, I think that, you know, when you ask, you know, why does the government do it? Maybe they have, you know, found some value in reaching their inner consciousness and inner intuitions, and maybe they have solved problems via these methods, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're, you know, traveling their consciousness.
Right. No, that's fair. Pat Calabria, thank you for the $10 super chat. First time I've seen the name in the chat, so thank you for being here. And it seems like you're pretty new to the show, so we appreciate it. Welcome to the UCR family. Lou and Mike are new guys on the block. I think with their positive attitudes, things may get done. We truly appreciate it. We're trying to keep positive attitude. We're trying to take the topic seriously, but not ourselves too seriously. And I think that's fair with this topic today of sort of remote viewing and what we went the rabbit hole down into today, because there was some guys in the chat, like, you know, UFO Blueprint and everybody, they're like, they're not buying this. Like they are not on board with the remote viewing. Zofa,
on the other hand, we have
like on board.
No, Zofa's totally on board.
You think so?
Yeah, Zofa's claimed that he's done it. He's remote viewed.
Oh, that's right. Okay, no. Well, so then who the hell was I thinking about? Who the hell was I thinking about? Somebody put out there so who asked the question about the ashes? Because that seemed very like, all right, can you cite the ashes? I thought it was Zofa, right?
That was Matthew Riot.
Matthew Riot, excuse me. I'm sorry. That was so. Thank you for
kills
that.
It in the Discord. He has so much information, and I don't think that he's necessarily a complete skeptic either. I know that he posted in Discord that he has some friends who are really big into remote viewing and are trying to get him into the practice.
Right.
But yeah,
well, here's the thing.
I would be very interested if Matthew Riot is able to do it.
Right. Well, and also Jazz Shaw was not happy with the conversation. I could just feel him through the chat. He's like, you know, I love how somebody remote viewed what Jazz Shaw was doing through this conversation, and that was having a drink and sitting on his lazy boy.
Yeah, I know. I remote viewed the image that he sent to Mike, and maybe he can confirm this later. But I'm picturing a dolphin in a Tic Tac for some reason. I don't know.
That's why. The book that he's reading. You think right now?
I think that it's involved somehow.
I didn't even give it a thought. I wonder what Jazz is reading. A book. We don't have to guess the book, right? We kind of just have to guess an image of it. Right?
He was asking for the title, I guess. Actually,
the title specifically. Let me see if I can pull a word.
Yeah,
the. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Okay, I'll go a word. Traverse. Yeah, we'll see. Let's see if the word traverse is in the title of Jazz's book. I probably got,
if it turns out to be the traverse, then I'm gonna have to change my entire
perspective. Yeah, the traverse. It sounds like a good book too. That sounds actually like something Jazz would read. But yeah, man, it's look. Let me ask you this though, because the part with this conversation is that, you know, they put the onus on you. Well, how do you know if you've never tried it, right? If you don't meditate, if you've never actually tried to quiet your mind and project yourself out there like this. So I'll ask you, do you meditate rather?
Not as much as I would like to. I try to dabble.
Have you ever meditated?
Yeah, I have meditated. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair. I mean, I feel like prayer is a form of meditation, right? I do love it, but not a lot of people love Ted Nugent, but one thing Ted Nugent that I took away from him where I was like, oh, that's an interesting little thing, is the first form of meditation was hunting, was shooting a bow and arrow, because the concentration and the stillness that you must have to really become good at using a weapon like that is meditative. And there have been books written on it. And I'm just like, man, okay, that's a good point. You know, so if you got to shoot an arrow through the eyeball of a rabbit that's 75 yards away, that takes some concentration.
It's like getting into the zone. They say it's kind of like a meditative state, right? Like if you're playing a sport or doing anything and you're kind of really caught up in the moment, that's kind of that. I think that's what a lot of people who meditate try to get after, that living in the moment.
Somebody wrote here, there's been a beginner's guide on Reddit at the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Our remote viewing seems to have a method to it all. Okay, we'll check it out.
Yeah, it's a big rabbit hole. I know there's like remote viewing websites and stuff where they'll put out a challenge every day, and I've actually tried some of that, and never been successful myself.
Interesting. Well, let me ask you, do you think the military is, like Michael asked, do you think they have a black budget part of the military that's somewhere they're doing this?
Yeah, I would say probably, yeah. I think Lou Elizondo was asked this recently, right?
Yeah.
Or, was asked, what about remote viewing and why did they end? And I think his answer was, why are you so sure that has ended? And I think that's kind of a telling answer. And
no, that's true. I mean, but that's also a very intelligence answer to give, like, well, how do you know it hasn't ended? Like, I mean, I feel like it's almost like I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you, kind of thing. The goat with a $5 donation. Great show. Chat loves rather. You know what?
I love the chat too. Luckily, I can pull Lou right back in.
Not if I leave the studio, you can't. Oh man, yeah, you got. I would love to see rather just sit here live. I think, God, you want to see someone squirm for about 15 or 20 minutes, but I feel like you figure it out. It's not tough. Just DM the book cover to Lou. Let me take a look. Oh my God, if it's The Verge or The Traverse, I'll lose my mind. Let me take a look.
I almost wish we would have synced up and planned a great trick on everyone with this reveal, but I think it's going to be a disappointment.
yeah, it's definitely going to be a disappointment. Although it definitely looks like a book Jazz would be reading. Boneheads and Brainiacs, Heroes and Scoundrels of the Nobel Prize in Medicine. Moria Dolan, MD. I mean, it looks cool. It looks like a vintage book, that's for sure.
Is it say of the? Did we at least get one?
We got
right in there?
the, yeah, we got the. There's no traverse. Although there's some words inside the brain here that I can't see all of them. I see like moral, Okay. So firmness, esteem. Jazz, do us a favor. See if the word traverse is in the brain in there somewhere. That would be pretty trippy if it was, right? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, a 1 in a million thing happens
all
every
the
day,
time,
right?
Yeah.
There's 300 million people in America, so there's 300 1 in a million events happening to someone every day. It is, and that's kind of the thing, with this as well is complete this sentence, Lou. Convincing yourself is the blank thing. What would you say? It's
convincing myself is the blank thing.
Is it easy or hard?
Oh, it's easy.
Yeah, that's
convincing.
I would say.
Convincing myself is easy. Yeah, of course it is. I think humans are innately want to believe things, right?
Yeah, and I think when that 1 in a million thing happens to you, it feels really special, right? And it feels almost supernatural.
Right. Yeah, but I mean,
but it isn't.
But it isn't. Yeah. Well, it depends. I mean, there are 1 in a million things happen, but there are those like very rare things. Like, for example, LeBron James. That only comes around once every 30 years, if we're lucky. I'm just using sport, a sport analogy, just because that's where my brain goes to almost every time. But
so here's a weird example. So there's an interesting Veritasium video on cosmic rays recently, which is I kind of touched on the intro, where there's particles coming from outer space that come and then they generate these high energy particles that come and are pretty much surround us all the time.
Yeah.
It's possible, in fact, it happens where a cosmic ray will come and hit your computer and flip a bit in your memory, right? So it'll change some data. And this actually happened once. There was an election somewhere where someone ended up winning the election by 64,000 votes in like a town where there's only like 5,000 voters, right? Where what they did a whole bunch of investigative analysis onto the electronics, and what they determined happened was a cosmic ray came down, and this photon hit this specific chip, and it turned one bit from a 1 to a 0, which ended up manifesting 64,000 more votes, right?
Oh my God. Let me ask you this. Who gave that news to the people? Was it a politician? Because that sounds about right. Well, yeah, dude. That's so funny. How did they figure that out? Like, I always find that funny. How did they figure out that a sun particle did that?
Well, the process of elimination. I guess they don't know 100% that that's the case, because they can't figure it out for sure. But they went down and they looked at every little line of code, every spec that they could analyze, and that's the only conclusion they could find. But imagine you're that politician, praying the night before, please, give me, a massive boost, and then that happened.
If I was a politician, I would hire a remote viewer, right? Like if it was something that was that good, reliable. Like, if I was a millionaire, I would just exactly what Carl said. Like, I would be remote viewing the Bitcoin price for tomorrow, and selling and buying based off of that, and I would be betting on sporting events, and I'd be taking advantage of the system as best I could. So, like, I just don't like So one company hires a remote viewer to figure out this problem that they have, and so they remote view the issue, 2 years into the future when they figured it out, and they bring it to here, and boom, they got it. Like, I would drop whatever widget it was I was making, and I would completely concentrate on what had just happened there, right?
Yeah, right.
I would open up a whole division and wing for that.
In a year, you would rule the world, it seems.
Right. I'd be like, okay, so Ted figured that out, or, like, let's get 15 or 20 more Teds and just take over all of this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Aaron Desario makes a good point, which is, many politicians hire psychics. Remember Nancy Reagan? And
I do not remember Nancy Reagan hiring a psychic, actually. Do you?
I don't specifically remember Nancy Reagan, but I definitely have seen lots of shows over the years that talk about the presidential psychics and the advice that they would give to, I take all this with a grain of salt too,
Right. Well, there's also been, religious zealots inside White Houses too that have given people advice.
Yeah. And
I mean, for God's sakes, Kid Rock was given the last president advice. Oh man. Anyway, all right. Let's move on to the next thing. I guess I just wanted to talk about this for a little bit. Did you get a chance to see the Demi Lovato promo before the show, rather?
Yeah, I did. I checked it out. It looked interesting.
Okay, so what do you think about that show concept?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. It didn't, nothing really stuck out at me. It just seemed like another, opening it up to a kind of a new community that probably hasn't been engaged in this topic before, right? And
definitely, right? Do you first gut feeling, do you think it's bad for the discussion or negative?
Not at all.
I didn't think so either. I was like, of course, Demi Lovato, and she's I'm doing it right now. They are big on pronouns. So you can't refer to her as a she. You can. I mean, obviously it's an accident. This is something I'm getting used to with some folks who prefer pronoun, their pronoun taken out of the equation. And they prefer that. So I'm trying to respect that, because I would love for one day to have them on my show. That would be wonderful, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, look, I think you're right. I think that they're exposing this to a generation of people that are brand new to this. They don't know anything about Bob Lazar, even. Like, they don't know anything about even the 2017 Tic Tac footage, probably. I mean, this is going to be a whole crop of people that are going to be getting into this for the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's not a bad thing, right?
Yeah, no, hopefully they bring some new perspectives, right? Like, you know, get more eyes on it, look at it from different angles, and
I'm gonna watch the show. I guess I'm just gonna have to get Peacock, or hopefully I don't think NBC is the same thing, but anyway, like, it does. I mean, let's see what the show brings. I don't know. I'm a little worried about it.
What do you think's the worst case scenario, or what are you worried about?
I just don't want people to get caught into something that is trying to be a religion, or get caught in a. Because what she's saying is that, what if these things are here and we just haven't realized that, and we've never tried to contact them? Like, I think she's saying she's contacting them essentially, and she's catching it on video, and she's got the money to go around the country to different hotspots and talk to different people, and she's got a camera crew that follows her. And I mean, if she gets some killer footage, that would be awesome. I don't know if it's going to be, I think it's going to be just standard, typical TV footage with no scientific process put into it, so maybe they get some cool stuff, but it won't change minds. But if they, maybe if they just put a little bit of science into it, they might be able to get, again, like I think my big thing now is 2 camera angles, man. Like, if you're going to film a show and you're going to have people that claim to call these things and interact with them on a daily basis through these flashes of light or streaks of light, or fantastic movements in the sky with right angles, turns, and you're claiming that they're not satellites, not aircraft, not military craft, you're claiming otherworldly things, then why are we not, as a production crew, going, okay, cool, let's get another camera crew on this mountaintop filming down on not only the campsite but above the campsite? Let's get a couple different camera crews with the proper cameras that could look into the atmosphere. Maybe even get some telescopic camera systems that can really, really look at these things. So that way, we as an audience could go, okay, at least they exhausted every possible scientific method that they could have with the budget they had. As opposed to trying to catch these things with just regular TV cameras. Because, Tyler made a great point last night. Like, the TV crew that was there with him when that thing popped up in the sky didn't have the cameras that were really able to look at the lights. It was his camera that was sitting in the back of the truck, his Sony. I can't remember the model number, but they got a pretty damn good lens on it, and they got some eyes on it. But the professional camera crew was not ready for that kind of filming, which is fair, because they're trying to film a TV show, not film the atmosphere.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're going to find any definitive evidence. I think it's going to be extremely hard for anyone to find that, and this phenomenon might be so elusive that it might be impossible, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of my big fear, is that this is going to turn out to be kind of like a religious issue where there's just no possible route for concrete, definitive answers for any of this.
Yeah.
But, for something like Demi's show, I think that their purpose isn't necessarily to change minds, or I don't know what their purpose is, but the effect of it, I don't think is going to be changing minds. I think you're right. They're not going to change anyone's minds, but I think they're going to introduce a lot of people to the topic, and that hopefully they'll go and explore and look up into the sky and learn things and be introduced to this topic. And I think that's a net benefit. When I was a kid, I was watching abduction tales and all sorts of out there stuff that I didn't take at face value, but stoked my curiosity and helped me engage further and do some own research of my own. And I think kind of like the remote viewing, the same sort of stuff. You shouldn't. I don't think there's any harm in people going out and talking about these topics. And I think that
no,
if people
not at all.
are interested and they think it's true and they investigate and experiment themselves, great, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I do wonder what would happen if somehow we could connect all of us at one time to all sit down and concentrate on one thing at the exact same time as a planet, not just as a country or the community, as an entire planet. I wonder if anything, if we'd be able to manifest anything, or, well, obviously if we had that sort of agreement, if we were able to coordinate on that level, I feel like a lot of things would be going pretty good for planet Earth, right? But I am curious, like, I wonder if they'd be able to, like, if the world came across an issue where they needed a drug for a new virus that they can't figure out, or something like that, where they could all concentrate and try and just like what Carl was talking about, figure out the solution before you reached it in the process. I do like, I remember that. Did you watch the J.J. Abrams version of Star Trek?
Yeah. At least one of them. I don't know.
At least one of them. Well, there was a cool scene where Scotty gets the math from Spock to be able to warp to teleport somebody while they're in warp, and Scotty's a guy who figures that out. But at the time of the movie that they're in, Scotty hasn't discovered it yet, but they've run into Spock from the future. And because of the situation, Spock from the future has to give him the equation that gives him that discovery. So anyway, that was really cool. A $10 donation from Mr. Bajur. Thank you so much for the donation. Sure, thanks. Thank you for that vote of confidence. Rather, remote viewing. If they can do a live experiment with random member of the audience as the target, then I could be convinced. Too much, it's easy, but no one can demonstrate it in real time.
I don't think I'd even be convinced with that, to tell you the truth.
Yeah,
I would think it would be a Dan Brown or Darren Brown type of suggestive trick.
What would convince? Well, let me ask you this: what would convince you then of that remote viewing is real?
Yeah, I guess if someone won the Powerball, if they publicly
and
said,
I remote viewed it.
The next, if they said, hey, I remote viewed the numbers about
who would do that though? Who would do that? And would that be considered cheating? I wonder if the attorneys from the state lottery would be like, whoa, wait a second, who would admit that? That's what it would be. It wouldn't be, I've tried it and I've just went ahead and rolled it out. I don't believe it.
Well, I mean, that's the problem with CE5 and other conscious related things, is that it's hard to prove the negative, right? Like a lot of these people will claim that, if you don't believe in it enough, it's not going to happen to you. So, a lot of people will kind of try to put the blame on the person who's unable to manifest the concept. And I don't know, my imagine, I can visualize things. I can, visualize something. And if I visualize something and it turned out to be right, I don't even know if that would convince me, right? Because
what if you did it 10 times though?
Yeah. I guess they're starting to get there, but
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, what if you were good at this, but because you didn't really give it a shot, you didn't even figure it out?
I have given it a shot, Lou. Have you?
No, I've never tried to remote view anything. I mean, let me see what I get. If I'd love to remote view myself some dinner right now, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, consciousness is really weird, right? Have you ever had sleep paralysis?
No.
So I've experienced that a couple times, and that's probably one of the most supernatural, weirdest type experience I've had. And experiences like that almost get me to think that maybe there is something to the terms of astral planes and remote viewing. Like when you have sleep paralysis, it almost does kind of feel like an out of body experience, and you kind of half dreaming, half not. And
was it scary for you?
Yeah, sometimes it is scary. Yeah, you feel like I want to wake up, but you're paralyzed, right? And it's
Does
a
it feel
very
like
weird
someone's in the
phenomenon.
room, like some people say?
Yeah, yeah. It feels like there's people around you, but you're paralyzed. You can't do. Yeah, it is a frightening, weird, not
Yeah. So how
experience.
did you determine 100% that it is in fact sleep paralysis?
I don't know. There's a sliver in my mind that thinks that maybe there is something weird going on to this, and that there's a demon that's lurking over me when I go to sleep sometimes. That is,
I love how you
literally
actually
true.
looked behind you. Oh man.
But I mean, yeah, you can't rule that out. And consciousness
Yeah.
is we obviously haven't figured out consciousness. So I don't close the door on all these strange possibilities entirely.
Yeah. Matthew Wright with a $4.99 donation. Thank you so much, sir. From Paul Gavin, invite Israeli professor Souk Madik on to talk about his work with the space program. Why are you laughing?
Really, Lou?
Oh,
Read
wow.
that again.
Did I get caught again? Oh, man. But good thing I said Souk, right? Like I feel like I pronounced
Oliver.
it. Dude, you will get me every time with shit like this. Every time. So Matthew Wright, I'm almost like the idiot who reads the teleprompter every time. I will just read it. I won't even think about it.
I love a good Bart Simpson phone call joke.
That is a damn good one, because that one was sneaky. I just love how you immediately caught it. I'm just, dude. Seek my deek. That's funny. All right, you guys.
Love the live chat.
So you gotta love the live chat. All right, so we got 20 minutes left. I wanted to play this clip. Tom DeLonge's been talking a lot lately, and man, some of the things he's saying is pretty wild. And this was one of the things that I pulled from this interview, and I highly recommend everybody go check it out. Rather, he wrote down the name of the host of this show. He's from Australia. What was the name of it?
Yeah, The Plug with Neil Griffiths.
The Plug with Neil Griffiths. So I'm gonna play this clip and just get your thoughts on it. And yeah, well, let's talk about it. Let's play it.
Can you
it's
tell
about 3
me
minutes.
how these conversations go? Like when Tom DeLonge, the musician, who's for 20 years has been on stage making people laugh and cry with your music, you go into a room with a government official and they look at you and say, "Who the fuck are you? Who are you to get into this activity with us?"
Yeah,
did that happen, or is it?
Oh, yeah. There's a few things. There's the first of like, there's a whole story about how I achieved this that I'm trying to get permission to tell. That's like people are gonna fucking have their minds blown. But just from a high level, what I can say is like there's moments where I'm just making shit up, trying to get them to meet with me, and I don't know what to say because I know if I say UFO, I'll get kicked out. There's also moments where people come and meet with me on their own initiative, and they sit down and say, who the fuck are you? And what do you know? Like there's come some of that. And then there's some of like more sobering conversations where, let me explain to you the stakes of what you're doing. And then they explain something that you never really understood because you don't have the experience that they do, dealing with things that are literally like really scary and a big deal, like nuclear proliferation or biological warfare or terrorism or UFOs, like these are all huge things that you and I could never really understand the stakes. Now we can put pieces together, what's going on and what they are and what they're doing, and it's scary and it's unnerving, but the stakes of that is a big deal. And so I've kind of had a lot of different conversations, but I think what they found out was that I'm a smart guy and I'm kind of the man for the job because I understand business and I understand art. I'm also not an actor, so people don't think I'm acting. They might think I'm crazy, they might whatever, but at least they kind of like put me in a different category. But I always did what I said I would do. I executed. I was always very like humble and about it, and was very like, I'm not Ed Snowden. I'm not trying to poke the lion in the eye, because the reality is when you come to this subject, people can whine and kick and scream all they want about being left out of the the secret, or not being informed, they don't want to be. Trust me. Like, this is not a good thing. The people working on this shit they're not running around going, oh, this is so awesome. I'm so stoked. I know something they don't. These guys aren't sleeping, and they're probably fucking up all night, exhausted and stressed, and hate their life because they're dealing with something that is like fucking difficult, and all of us get to go to the mall on the weekends not knowing that stress. It's like when someone tries to sneak a nuclear weapon into Sydney, it's like, you don't want to know about it. You don't want to be the guy that has to not fucking let everyone die. It's like, no one wants that job.
I mean, that's a pretty wild statement, man. Knowing what he knows and the rooms that he's been in and the people that he's spoken to. I mean, he was on an email chain with John Podesta and Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. No, that is interesting stuff. So yeah, he's saying that there's, these programs, these military programs are investigating these issues, are actively stopping the destruction of all of us, essentially.
I don't know if that's what he meant by that. I think what he meant was it's just as scary. It's just as scary as nuclear proliferation or terrorist, or, he was naming the things that were really scary, and that this shit is scary. Like, the guy who knows about this doesn't want to know about this. And you screaming that you want to know about this, you really don't want to know about this. This is a lot scarier than you think. And that the thing that sort of rung, I don't want to say true with me, but the thing that made a lot of sense was, man, it just makes a ton of sense as to why they've been keeping it a secret maybe for 70 years. Because it's fucking terrifying. It is really, really scary and hard to deal with. Like, we'd rather just have people going on with their mundane lives and have to think about this.
Yeah. No, Tom DeLonge did another interview. I forget if it was whose show it was on, but it was Kurt Jamallo from Theories of Everything was involved. And they asked Tom about I guess there was an incident that kept him up for 3 days straight, essentially terrified.
Yeah.
And he didn't give a direct answer to that, but I read some speculation on Reddit, and a lot of them were speculating that, potentially if the interdimensional hypothesis is right, that would mean that, the sleep paralysis demon over my shoulder is real and can manifest at any time.
Yeah.
And that sleep paralysis could be literally a real interdimensional being that can manifest and watch me, whenever I want. And if you knew that reality to be true, that would be pretty damn terrifying, right? Like, you would not feel comfortable sleeping in your own house because you lock the doors, but something can get in. That kind of seems like what he might have been referring to, as far as, you don't want to know this information,
Yeah, but I mean, does that terrify you, that thought?
It doesn't, because I presume it'd be like that forever, right?
Right.
But I could see that being terrifying. Like, if I had sleep paralysis every night, that would be a lot more terrifying to me. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any ideas of what could be so terrifying that would?
I think it's something that would be terrifying would be something that would maybe be able to rip through dimensions and take people. Like, maybe a lot, like if there was a missing, like if they were following missing persons that they felt fit the criteria of this interdimensional wackiness, ripping people apart, like internal combustion, stuff like that. That kind of stuff I think would be pretty scary. But would you want to know about it? Like, if that was the truth, would you want to know that there are these things that can at any time they feed on you or whatever they do? Who knows? Like, I think that would be scary. Being eaten alive to me is terrifying. So if there's something out there that could at random just pick me out and just start gnawing on my flesh and rip me apart, that would be really scary.
Yeah, but we don't need any like abduction theories do that, right?
Right.
What what new could have been revealed to Tom DeLonge that would have elevated his fright so much, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the way he describes it is that he figured it out. Basically, like through all his research and everything that he was doing, when he started talking to the upper level people, like he essentially pieced this together. I really wish he would elaborate on what the fuck he means. I mean, at this point, the word F has been used so many times on the show. Thank you, Tom DeLonge, for demonetizing this episode. But like you know what I mean? Like it's I don't know, man. I don't know what he's figured out, because when he goes into these rooms, some of these, like from what he explains, like he's been interrogated because they're like, how did you know this? Like they were upset. Some people are upset with how he knew this. Some people were very curious as to how he figured this out. And that's how he got so high up in this process. At one point, he said during this interview that his team was wearing bulletproof vests when they were coming around the TTSA release stuff, and that there were longer videos that were really close to the plane that would definitively prove that these things are 1,000,000% real, but that the Pentagon got really pissed that they even had access to that stuff. Like how they even got access to it is so he gotten like, yeah, I would recommend everybody go check out this interview because there's a lot of cool stuff he says in it. And if half of it, if a quarter of it is true, that is pretty revealing stuff.
Yeah, Tom DeLonge, just his involvement in this is one of the most fascinating and weird,
absolutely wild.
Because either it is, he's figured something out and is, by his figuring it out was able to tap into all of this.
Or
they're, it's part of a psyops, right? They're trying to, get someone and manipulate them in order to manipulate the public. And I actually think the first one might be more believable to me, but
yeah,
God, I don't know.
Well, it was funny. He was talking about how he's got a good buddy who was a spy in a CIA that works on his team or is related to him in some way, not like by blood, but works with him on some level with this stuff. And that when he was interviewing to be in the CIA, to be a spy, they, of course, interrogated him and asked him, well, have you done drugs? And he's like, yeah. Have you stolen stuff? And he's like, yeah, I've stolen stuff. And that's the qualities they look for. They're not looking for a straight A student with the perfect marks. They're looking for someone who's lived life, who's made mistakes, who knows how to conduct themselves when they're put in a situation where they might have to lie to get out of trouble. And so, it was when he was explaining that in this interview, I'm like, that kind of makes sense, I don't see, they want people who've tried LSD, like if you get into a situation where maybe you're being asked to do it, because the drug dealer you're talking to is like, guys, just prove to me you're not a cop, or whatever it is, or whatever the situation is. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like that makes sense.
Yeah. I guess, I don't know. I don't know if that does make sense, to tell you the truth,
really?
Right?
I mean,
are you talking about like Tom DeLonge or Tom DeLonge's friend there, right? Like
I feel like Tom. Yeah, no, not Tom DeLonge. I'm talking about Tom DeLonge's friend who had worked in the CIA. This guy named Ted, I want to say, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing here. I only listened to the interview once, but this idea, when he went in, he thought he'd failed the test because he gave those honest answers, and the CIA was like, no, that's exactly what we're looking for. Like we are looking for someone who has pushed the limits of things, because if you're a spy, I mean, that's job number one, is being able to put yourself in a position where if you get caught, number one, you hopefully can work your way out of it where no one factually figures out what's going on with you, or two, it's like you.
I think
you know what I mean.
Probably,
like,
I mean, like there's probably a line there, right? Like if you've have a history of substance abuse, they probably aren't going to want
No,
to
no, no, no.
hire you. But,
Not substance
that,
abuse. I mean, just one of these things where it's like you've learned from the mistakes that you've made. You've been able to grow from them. Whereas somebody who's never done that stuff and is put into a situation where they might have to be, again, you're a spy. You're an international spy. Think about some of the things you're going to have to put yourself into to convince people that you are who you say you are. That's all I'm saying. It makes sense that they don't want the perfect, the valedictorian. They want somebody who's got a little bit of an edge to them.
That might be true. I would contend that they would probably give the valedictorian straight edge person a pretty good run at it too. I think that they're looking for you to be truthful, right? Like if you have, I think that's the main point. Correct. Is if you have,
they're looking for you to be truthful, but at the same time, it's not like the valedictorian is not going to get a wonderful job. They're going to get an amazing position doing something really important. But what I'm saying is, for that grunt work, like that, you want somebody who is just as smart as a valedictorian, but has lived life, has experience, if that makes sense, that's why they prefer, people who've been to war multiple times to come back and lead men to go back into war, because they know it, like I wouldn't want to be a general of a military invasion and I'm fresh out of the academy.
Sure. Yeah, no,
anyway.
Yeah.
I just thought it was
I don't know if Tom DeLonge could apply to the CIA and get secret clearance, but I think you're right about his buddy.
Yeah, I am curious though, like what he's figured out, or what he, like the conversation, what's so goddamn scary that we can't handle. Because he does say, like you said, he was up for 3 days. We get to go to the mall and not have to worry about this stuff, and that's that's true with any sort of national security issue. Like right now, there could be a huge terrorist threat on Los Angeles, and I would have no clue. There could be like a big bomb sitting under the city somewhere, under City Hall or something. But by the way, there is no bomb under City Hall. Like, this is just a complete hypothetical situation.
But the truth is terrifying.
The truth is terrifying. Like, you don't want to know. Like, you don't want to know how the soup is made. You just want to eat the soup.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hope that we don't find the truth and that we're all regretting that we found the answer.
Yeah. What'd that $5 donation say? Pop it back up. Jason Smith, thank you so much for the donation. That's exactly what I meant when I asked Lou Elizondo that question about truth being terrifying. If you boil it down, it's almost the only answer.
And so what's the answer though?
So what's the answer? Yeah. So what is it? Yeah, no, dude, we could go on forever. I mean, I think part of it could just be how insignificant we are. We really are. Like how just we are toilet paper, or the smudges on them. Like we're nothing in the grand scheme of the cosmos, and that could be terrifying.
I mean, if you just look at it, a whole life is terrifying, right?
It is, absolutely.
Death is terrifying. There's terrifying reality.
Did you see that movie Soul?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I just watched it last night. Check it out. It's a good flick. And it's sort of this whole idea of what is life, what is death, what is passion, what is the things that you chase versus what actually life really means, and sort of these throwaway moments that you never think about, is these in between, the sort of the devil in the detail moments that you just walk by every day, or you never take advantage of because of societal norms or whatever. So it's a cool movie. It's a fun little flick to explore.
Interesting. I'll check that out. Life is quite mysterious itself, even without the UAPs.
Indeed it is, rather. Indeed it is. Well, on that note, you guys, it has been an insane week, an absolute insane week. Fair? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, hell of a week. Been fun.
I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Yeah, it's been fun but exhausting. Everyone here has deserving of a rest. So rather, thank you again so much for putting in all of the amazing work that you put in, not only for the photo home, but during this week. Fun conversation today. Go
Thank
check
you
out
for
the
putting
Tom
it on,
DeLonge.
Lou. You've been amazing.
Yeah.
You did amazing
Dude,
work.
appreciate it, man. I do it for the people. But yeah, check out the Tom DeLonge conversation. Again, what's that guy's show's name? Something Griffiths?
The Plug with Neil Griffith.
The Plug with Neil Griffiths. So go check out the Tom DeLonge interview there. It's really, really good. You know, I like that he's talking more. A lot of this, not a lot, but I'd say a third of the interview is talking about Angels and Airwaves and the new band, of course, you know, but there's some really great moments in there as far as the UAP conversation goes. And I'm curious to know what happened between Lou and all those guys and why they broke up and what went down there. Because it seems like they're pretty much still on the same page as far as messaging is concerned.
Yeah, seems like a amicable breakup, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, although on the paperwork, I think Lou was the only one who was technically fired. On the tax paperwork, I think at the end of it,
I didn't catch that. That's
I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure like everybody else was like resigned, whereas he was let go. Kind of thing. So I don't know. Maybe I'm reading.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, who knows what that's all about?
Yeah,
you know, a lot of it.
Well, that's the whole point.
Like,
I want to know.
Exactly.
Exactly. All right, you guys. Well, thank you all so much for tuning into the show. I hope you had a good time today. I hope this was an interesting conversation. Do us a favor, of course, like, subscribe, share the channel. Want to say thank you to the sponsor, BlueMarlinChronicles.com, purveyors of the world's finest fishing tackle since 1995. Want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all of the tunes that you hear on the show. Their Bandcamp link is in the description below. Want to say thank you to all the guests this week, all the guests from the phone home, two co-hosts, rather, and Michael Mataluni, who had to dip out a little early today. And yeah, I think that's it. Of course, check out the links below. Subscribe to the Patreon. We have a merch store. We got some really cool merch. Everybody seems to be loving the merch, so I'm so happy with that. I was very, very nervous. But other than a couple of wrong sizes and a couple of shipping thingies here and there, everybody seems to be super happy with it. So I appreciate that you guys are loving the merch. Yeah, Rather, what do you got going on this week? Anything?
Yeah, I'm going to be building a cloud chamber and documenting some high particle physics. So yeah, subscribe over on Rather Be Squidding so you don't miss that.
You don't want to miss that. All right, you guys, until next week, thank you so much for coming aboard and getting weird with us here on another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFOs. My name's Luis Jimenez. That is Rather Be Squidding. Until next time, you guys, stay safe out there. Peace.
I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom, you're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.
I believe you're enjoying all this. Indeed, Captain. I've never seen him look so happy.
Shut up.
Shh. Shh.
Well, what do you know? I finally got the last word.